The comments, opinions, and views shared during this program are of those individual Freemasons and do not reflect the official position of a Grand Lodge, Concordant Body, Appendant Body, Masonic Authority, or CraftsmanOnline.com.
Hey, welcome back to the Craftsman Online Podcast, the only Masonic podcast endorsed by the Grand Lodge of New York. I'm your host, Right Worshipful Brother Michael Arce. We got a good one tapped up for this Monday. Getting into the month of June. And hopefully, quick timeout, you have joined us with Craftsman Online. We have teamed up with the Grand Lodge of the state of New York and also Arizona State University for what we like to call summer school. There's a really cool free online virtual course that's going underway now. You can sign up anytime to join. The cool thing is you don't even have to be a Freemason to take this. Like, dads, this is something you could do with your kids over the summer. All you have to have is an interest in Freemasonry and a computer. And these modules are so cool. We're going to find out what our founding fathers wanted us to do with this pursuit of happiness. And if you get started now, by the time we hit Labor Day weekend, well, the 12 weeks should be done, and you could get a pretty cool little certificate from Arizona State University. So if this sounds fun and something you want to do, get the details by visiting us online at craftsmanonline.com and just click on the summer school link. Well, every season, I invite a past master on the podcast for an open conversation about their time in the East. I enjoy this tradition, and I'm happy to welcome in Worshipful Brother Edmond Freeman, who's the past master of Hiram-Takoma Lodge number 10, of the Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia. Brother Ed, welcome back to the podcast.
It feels great.
Just a quick reset. If you missed it last year, 2025, you were part of one of my favorite episodes, one that I got a lot of feedback on, honestly, our Mastering Your Trestle Board, where Ed joined a panel of some cohorts here in the Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia, two other brothers, and kind of fielded questions on how to successfully plan, look at some leadership models, some ideas. You guys all had some great ones. So we'll make sure the link to that OG episode is there. But striking out in a zone, we're going to get a little bit more into your mother lodge, Hiram-Takoma Lodge number 10, here in the Grand Lodge of DC. Every master, or past master, I should say, can remember the night that they were installed as master of the lodge. What was going through your mind that night, and how was it different the night that you watched your successor be installed as master of Hiram-Takoma?
I think a lot of it was, obviously my wife was there, a bunch of folks, and I kept thinking to myself, because I had this grandiose plan of, my speech and different things and how I was going to move around the room. And so that was kind of like going through my mind, and I kept telling myself, don't F this up, don't F this up, don't F this up. And guess what? I F'd it up. Nice.
Bad or just enough for you to know?
So I had a speech, I had it written on my phone, just talking points. And the phone was in my wife's purse and I couldn't find it. Not realizing, where's my phone? And but, I ad-libbed it for the most part, and it worked out.
So that was going in. What about coming out?
I'll be honest. There's a couple of things happening in Lodge that it was more about, I'm ready to get out of here. But looking back on it now, I've left the Lodge in a very good state, and I should have been very proud of that. But there were a couple of inside family matters that kind of put me off a lot. And to be honest, I was just kind of like ready to get out of there, just to get away from it. But looking at it now, it wasn't as big of a deal as it appeared initially.
Just for some perspective, like the whole idea of doing My Year in the East, this is a one episode every season. I started it a couple years ago. I talk with a past master and they reflect on what it was like during that year. We talk about the excitement that you felt going in that night. For me, somewhere inside, I started seeing all the ghosts and the faces of the brothers that had been a part of my Masonic career. And I just got overwhelmed with emotion. And I'm not a big crier like that, but dude, I had to take a couple pauses. Like, my wife was sitting there recording it. I'm like,
yeah, and of course, everyone is recording. Of course.
That was going in, and then coming out, I had a tinge of jealousy. I wanted to do another year. I enjoyed being master so much that I just didn't want to let it go.
Yeah.
But I knew that it was my time to step aside and let somebody else in there. But I'd be lying if it's a little part of me was like, man, I could have done 2 years.
Wow.
It's an interesting experience, and kind of as I wanted to mention, like this whole talking to a past master every year to get their perspective is for our listener who's either getting ready to go into that chair, the big chair in Lodge, or is thinking about it. It started off from an episode that I did with a past master on why be master of your lodge.
That's an excellent question, because it took me a while to figure that out for myself. Like, why do I even want to be a master, right? For me, there were a lot of things and that sort of played into that. So we can start with very basic. I sort of went through the like all of the seats, right? Starting off as a junior steward. And so it was just my time. But then deep down, doing the research and all of it, is I pretty much realized that, through my years, that Hiram-Takoma has been led by, men of stature, right? Like giants, and not just in our lodge, but folks that sort of represent, the entire Washington, D.C. Grand Lodge. The master who was part of the reason why the Grand Lodge in D.C. got integrated, who is really from our lodge, right? Being one of the first to welcome African Americans in Lodge, and to sort of work with Prince Hall and all of that. It's like just listening to stories and seeing these images of these masters, portraits of these masters in our lodge, made me want to be a part of that, right? To leave that legacy of these are people who made a difference. And so, again, I started off with, I'm up, right? But then as I went through the journey, it got deeper and deeper that I wanted to be a part of this history.
What was your progressions? Which chairs did you sit in leading up to the big chair in the East?
So I sat in all of them, right?
Wow.
So I was actually, I believe I was the last one to have sat in every seat in Hiram-Takoma. So I went through the progression, what was that, 5-6 years? Yeah, all of it. Yep.
I would say that time, not like a prison sentence, but the time that you put into those chairs, I would say that was probably pretty useful by the time you got to the East. Like, not only did you know every single member, but there's a pretty good chance that you could fumble your way through opening and closing, even if you didn't know all the parts.
Yeah, it was, right? I didn't, to be fair, I didn't get an appreciation for that until I got East, or was...
Hold on just a second. Anybody that went to one of your meetings appreciated that you went through all of those chairs, Ed. We thank you for that.
Why, thank you. Thank you. That's high praise, and I appreciate that. So, as you know, one of my mentors, the biggest one of all, is Chip Mahaney. And Chip and I will always talk, and one of the things that Chip mentioned or will always say is, you have a different appreciation of the East if you've sat in all those seats, right? Because you get to see everything from the ground up. That's one of the truest words I've heard anyone say to me, because, yeah, you truly get to appreciate what it means. A lot of it comes into play during degree work, understanding nuances of things, words said here and there, and what it means, and then the seats and, the movements and all of that. And, I'm extremely appreciative that I went through that. Now, I'll be the first to admit there are brothers who may have the opportunity to step up because they have to step up. By all means, please take that. However, if you have an opportunity to start from the junior deacon, sit in every seat, I highly recommend it.
I jumped a couple chairs. We have a few extra chairs in New York. I was able to skip past those, but I would say the more time, and I did 3 years or 3 times through the junior wardens, twice in New York and once in the DC area. The more time you can spend in Lodge, you can tell the guys that have been there, they're so much more comfortable we're in the East. The formalities, they understand that. But it's also how you carry yourself during the meeting, between the gavels, so to speak, where you've got the business, but you just look at that guy and you're like, look, he is comfortable there. He's a leader. He's getting up. He's walking around the lodge. Like, he owns the room and he's very comfortable with himself. And I'm always impressed with brothers that have that type of demeanor. Let's talk about advice, because I'm sure, almost 8 years of going through those other chairs to get to the one in the East. You probably heard a lot of stuff from guys. Was there anything that stuck out that you look back now and go, he kind of knew what he was talking about, or that was just complete crap?
I honestly can't recall a single one, but to be fair, I heard a lot of good advice, on my journey to the East. There is one that sticks out, and which it took me a while to understand the meaning of that, right? And that advice was this: every single person who joined Masonry has a different motivation. Each person has his own motivation for becoming a Mason, right? And I cannot recall which brother actually shared that with me, right? And and that was pretty much the gist of the advice, right? It's like, all right, what is that supposed to mean to me? But going through it all, especially when I was, the senior warden, I started to question different people, right? Different brothers and their dedication and their motivation to lodge. Like, why isn't this person doing this? Or how come this person isn't doing it the way that I feel they should be doing it? And then ultimately, when I got to the East and started having conversations with different brothers, either for some reason, folks tend to open up a little bit more to you when you're in the East versus when you're not. Somehow it works out that way. And conversing with these brothers, I realized that, yeah, they have different motivations, right? And who am I to judge whatever their motivation is? And the more time I spend trying to understand who people are and what their motivations are, it sort of helps me become a better leader to support them in whatever purpose they have becoming a Mason, as opposed to judging them for not walking in my footsteps. And like I said, it took me a while to realize that, but ultimately, once I got that, I believe I became a better leader, and ultimately, I feel like our lodge got better for it.
One of the things I love about you is, I'm going to go back to that mastering your trestle board episode, because I think so much is true to the adage of, you either plan for success or you fail to plan. And there's no doubt that you weren't going to have a successful year, because I saw your trestle board. And I know you visited a lot of lodges and you took in people's opinion in the years leading up to becoming master of a lodge.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
So you were ready to go. What defines your year as being a success? What was the thing that you're like, yeah, I can look back and say I had a successful year in the East?
I'll give you two if you don't mind. The first, when I made a phone call, right, I initially sent an email, and then I picked up the phone and called Right Worshipful Brother Andrew Hammond, and I asked him in person if he would be kind enough to do a program for me. And he said yes. And but for you only. He didn't specify anything else, but said those words. And, we've talked a few times. Right Worshipful Andrew Hammond is one of those guys that I have a lot of respect for, right? Because for him, it's about the learning, the craft, understanding what the craft is all about. And I really, really wanted him to do that program you did with him, because I wanted him to speak to what it meant to him, and, like what it takes to be who he is, right? To be able to speak to those incoming master masons and be able to explain to them, like the work he puts in, his research, history of the craft. And so for him to agree to do that program and without hesitation, right? That to me stood out as I must be doing something right for him to agree to do my program. It's the first part. And then secondly, I've heard this from two other masters, right? I'm going to call his name here because I feel like he's one of those people that deserve a lot of credit and doesn't maybe get as much credit. Works for Brother Neil Jarvis from Hiram-Takoma Lodge. He's been around a while. And one of the things he said to me, I've been here for a while. I've sat here and seen over 21 masters in the East. And I can tell you, you are by far one of the best masters we've ever had. You know, to hear that from someone like Neil Jarvis, and we've had some really good masters. I mean, you know some of them, right? You know our history.
Well, it's one of the things I do love about the Grand Lodge of DC, the District of Columbia, is that it's a federal territory. I love, telling people that's only 7 miles wide. It's really hard to get lost in DC. Yes, possible. Hard too. It's a tight group of brothers. And I felt like the year that you were in the East, it was like, when you graduate and the class behind you is cooler than your class and they're tighter and they're more fun. And you're like, man, kind of jealous of those guys too.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit to the Masters Club that kind of existed and how much you guys came to each other's aid. That was special.
Oh, man. Yeah, I sound like an old record now, right? But like I said, sitting in every seat. I've honestly never seen it, right? Like just the close connection, the ties that we all had, the Masters of 2025, never saw it before. And it started from the MWA, right? Master Warden Association, where everyone sort of like got together and made a pact to say, we should start planning these things. And one of the things that we talked about quite a bit was, hey, we should talk about different programs you guys are going to do, perhaps share and do those things. So from that, going to those various meetings, meeting these people, exchanging numbers, so we put in the work from like junior warden to senior warden, right? When we went to those meetings, and we just started like build that rapport, just starting to get to know each other. So one of the first people I met in that area, actually he came to visit my lodge before I went to one of those meetings, was from Brother Paul Cedro from East Gate. He was one of the first ones that I met before I even attended those meetings. And then obviously, he's a very popular guy, right? He introduced me to all the folks he knew, and then we would all talk about things that we wanted to do together. Then you meet different people like Worship Brother Nathan Williams from D Colonial. I met him, and then it was just instant. Yeah, that's kind of cool. We should try that. And so meeting these people and conversing with them and sharing sort of like tips about things and what we plan to do, it led to this openness, right? I've never seen brothers or masters willing to share as much as our group of people, because one of the first things I did, I fire off my list of programs, transport to every master, like here's all the stuff I plan to do. If any of you have programs that are similar to mine and you're interested in collaborating, let me know. And before you know it, other people are sending theirs to me. It's like, oh, I'm planning to do this, I'm planning to do that. So by then, it's like you knew who was doing what program, and something you were interested in, you could say, oh yeah, I'll come to that. Case in point, I had we did the chili cook-off. We did, right? We had, I think, 7 Sin Masters attend, and 5 of them entered into their competition. So, I thought that was like great. And so based on that, we were all just, what program are you doing? Great, I'll be there, Or if you needed someone to sit in or do something, you just pick up the phone and say, hey, I need your help with something. We made it a point to support each other no matter what. We put in the work prior to our year, and that continued throughout the year.
It's one of the things that I would challenge our listener. I mean, the Grand Lodge of DC. So DC, we established federal territory, not that big. It's only 7 miles across. There are 40, at the time of this podcast recording, there are 43 lodges in the Grand Lodge of DC with 1 under dispensation. So 44. 3 of those lodges are in the Grand Lodge of Lebanon. So they are out of the country, right? So now you're down to 41 that you can go travel and visit. And it's not that all 41 of the masters of all of the lodges during Ed's term had this pact, that this friendship, but enough of them did to where those of us that were past masters were like, well, I was friends with like 2 or 3 guys. Like this is almost the whole crew. And they would travel to each other's installations. They were part of each other's events and meetings. So if you have less than 41 lodges in your district, in your jurisdiction, and you're listening to this conversation, you're on notice, bro. And it doesn't take that much.
Yeah. One of the things that I think we need to get out of our own heads is that we have this tendency of saying, well, I don't want to impose. I don't want to interfere. With our group, hey, what are you guys doing? Do you need help or anything? Right? Just being able to pick up the phone and call anyone, anytime. And even if you needed help, hey, I need someone to sit in here, or we're doing a degree work. I need X, Y, and Z. And I was one of those people who would just blast out an email to the entire group. And before I shut down my computer, I would get like 5+ responses from different people. Yeah, I'll be there. I'd never heard of it.
I got 3 questions left. 2 of them are from your October stated loaded questions game that we played. So be ready for that. But this will be our fun question before we get to the heavy ones. You have to give. What is that gem, that Ed Freeman past master advice that you wish that you had, or that you were just going to freely dispose to anyone who asks now?
It kind of goes back to what I meant when I said different folks have different motivation. I'm going to get slightly heavy, and then to answer the question, Masonry is not above the fray with respect to politics. Right? There's that. It's a lot of that in there. My advice to anyone who is a leader, or who wants to get in the East, no matter what decision you make, no matter who you talk to, no matter how you talk to them, if you're sitting in the East, you will always be speaking as a master. Just think about that. Everything you say, everything you do will be judged as a master. Always carry yourself as the master in any conversation you have, in anything you do.
You asked me these 2 questions, along with a list of others, but I found these to be 2 that were really, really good. The first one was, what advice would you give an entered apprentice or newly raised master mason?
When I say take the time to learn, understand the words that are being said, right? Make sure you speak to the folks who are saying them and try to get an understanding of what it means. Because you will appreciate masonry more if you learn and understand things better, right? These are things I didn't realize. It's just, I sort of went through the motion of being a mason. Like, oh, yeah, those are just words. Those words have meaning. Every single word that is spoken in lodge, from the time you close those doors, from the time you start to the time you gavel to end lodge. Every single word has meaning. Try your best to learn them, because you get to appreciate masonry a lot more if you understand those words.
You're the first person that has made that comment. And I'm just wondering if that point that you made about how the words, especially the opening and closing of the lodge, I've always thought that in each of the chairs that you sit in the lodge, you get a different perspective of the lodge.
100%. Yes.
Is it that from the chairs? Is it the brother and how it changes every year, that it's some other man who is saying the same words that maybe you said or that you're going to say? Like, what makes those words so powerful to you?
For me, is every single word from every perspective means something. But put together, it tells a complete story, is the complete picture, right, of a Blue Lodge. So you would do well to understand them, because then you get to appreciate what a Blue Lodge really is. And not a lot of people get to do that. And I'm guilty of it. And the only reason I can now say this with a lot of confidence is because I've had really good mentors, like I said, Chip Mahaney being one of them, and being part of the ritual, doing degree work and stepping through lines. And especially when I fumble things and go to Chip and he explained things to me and say, just think about it. When you say this, what it really means. And when you start to get an appreciation for it, the meaning of it, then it's not difficult to memorize the words anymore because you now understand the full story. So it makes sense.
You know, I was going to circle this one on the questions that you asked because I'm like, there's a reason why he's asking this question. How can we as brothers strengthen and support one another more effectively?
That question came about because, so to just give you a little bit of history, sort of like the genesis of it. When I was, having one of my really shitty days, right? And
just one of them, yeah.
Yeah, it was a bad day, man. And I showed up to Lodge, and going through the motions of just doing things and just get this over with. And then I started having conversations with different people, and realized that, man, what I thought was a shitty day was not as bad as other people. In that moment, what it did for me was trying to get a better sense of who my brothers were and trying to understand who they are. It makes sense for me to really get to learn, to try to get to know them, right? Learn who they are and how can I support you, right? And in terms me supporting you, I'm helping myself along the way, right? Because I'm saying how to deal with certain situations and how to handle certain things. It made me realize that I need to do more.
Some of my favorite days are when I'm like, I've never been one of the guys who I'm like, oh shit, I got lunch tonight. Oh, I guess I'm going to go to, I always go, yes, I got lunch tonight. I can't wait. I love going to lodges. When I have a shit day, as you say, like the first and only people I go to talk to pretty much in this order is usually my wife when she comes home and she's like, how was your day? And I'm like, well, it wasn't really a great one. And here's why. And she's like, oh shit. He's going to go have a few drinks and smoke a cigar tonight. And I'm like, yep.
Right.
And I'm going to probably be on the phone for 2 hours talking to my brothers about this because they're the ones that I can tell anything to. And they not only listen to me, but to your point, like, dude, they give it to you straight.
I've gotten that.
And I love that about it. They're like, well, maybe you could be a little bit less of an asshole. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I could try there. Or, dude, that's just awful. I don't know what to say, but I'm just here to listen to anything that you have to say after this. And I love talking to them. And I love getting to be that guy eventually.
Yeah.
And that's when you know it's a two-way street when they start calling you.
Yeah.
And they're just like, hey, how was your day today? And you know they're not calling you to check on you. It's because they've got something they need to say and you're the one they want to talk to it about.
It's a good feeling.
All right. You have been awesome, by the way, on his Riding Solo podcast episode. Last time he was carrying the team. No, just kidding. But I'll get you out of here on this question. So outside of, well, start planning early, because you did mention that. Like you started looking at the East and what you wanted to do when you were a deacon, which is awesome. I always tell people, and you mentioned it as well, like listen to every word of advice or wise counsel that you may get, take everybody's opinion. The advice that specifically now for brother senior or brother junior warden who are sitting there, maybe knees knocking a little bit, little sweaty palms, got the racing thoughts in their head. They're listening to this episode and they're like, oh, next year's going to be my time in the East. What's the advice you have to kind of soothe and get them ready for that transition? What do they need to know?
One of the biggest things you need to understand is you don't have to be alone in this, right? That's the biggest piece of it where, everyone sits in the ease and think is, yeah, it's my responsibility and I must. Yeah, heavy is the head that wears the crown. I get that. But it doesn't have to be just you. And that's what Lodge is, right? Yes, you get to make the final decisions in certain things. I get it. But utilize the resources that you have. And that makes your life a lot easier. I was fortunate. I was extremely, extremely fortunate to have to have had a really good secretary in Worship Brother Chris Galakis. And when I tell you, I can simply say, this is a program I want to do, or this is what I want to do, and sit back, and the rest of it logistically is handled, right? And, in speaking to him after, me thanking him, and he's like, no, you made life easier because you had a plan, you came to me, and that's great. But the idea of it for me was just people you can trust, and being willing to trust that those people are going to come through for you, right? So it doesn't have to be on you and just you. That's the first, that's the biggest piece of it. But listen, still things you see in other lodges, but that requires you to visit other lodges, right? Meaning you visit lodges and you see them do something, you say, that is really cool. If I'm in the East someday, I would like to implement something, maybe that or something similar to that. And I did a lot of that. But here's the kicker for me. I typically went to the master and whoever it was and said, I really enjoy that. I'm going to steal it. And there are times where I end up inviting those masters to my lodge to be the one leading said effort. So not only was I inviting a guest, and they would come and bring some of their members, but I was implementing something that they sort of took on in their lodge, right? And, it's flattery, right? It's you flatter them by repeating or doing something they did in the past. So it doesn't have to be necessarily original in terms of what you're planning to do. So, take the things that you see that works and improve on the things that maybe that doesn't work so well, right? But trust people and work with different folks out there, and it doesn't have to be on you and on you alone.
Talking to you, it kind of makes me want to do it again. I just don't want anybody to hear me say that out loud. Just saying.
The wife is not listening, is she?
Worshipful Brother Edmond Freeman, past master, Hiram-Takoma Lodge number 10, the Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia. Thank you so much for your time again on this episode of the Craftsman Online Podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. My genuine pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
Thanks again to my guest this week, Worshipful Brother Edmond Freeman, for sharing his view from the East. I'm Right Worshipful Brother Michael Arce. We have an excellent episode tapped up for next week. One of our favorite guests returns, Brother Franklin Rings. We're going to get a little stoic as we talk about how Freemasons divest their vices by aid of Marcus Aurelius in the book Meditations. Yeah, get ready to go deep with us next Monday. Until then, let peace and harmony prevail.